A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice. So, Saturday saw our first preseason game, resulted in a 3-1 win over Grasshoppers of Zurich. Now, we're not holding too much into the scoreline. More importantly, it's how the team played and who the players to watch out for, who the players that shone, and who are the players that didn't shine. Goal scorers, Andy Irving, Callum Marshall, and Lucas Paqueta. Graham Potter used all his senior players, which were available to him. Well, all but one. And that included once-away player Naifa Gerd, as well as Maxwell Cornet. And ironically, of the senior players, they were the two mainly who didn't necessarily have a very good game, and I'll talk about them in a bit more depth later. Now, whatever we saw there could start to determine what's going to happen with their futures. Not only a Gerd and Cornet, but several others as well. But if there was one senior player that was conspicuous by his absence, that, of course, was Emerson. Look, it's no secret now with Diouf having been signed permanently and having made his appearance for West Ham. That also with WalkerPeters having been confirmed earlier on Sunday, it's no secret that Emerson's future at West Ham United looks pretty much over. Now, I did suggest on social media that it will be interesting to see who wasn't going to be selected for this game against Grasshoppers, because that will offer us a big clue as to who might be departing pretty imminently. And it looks as if we may see the departure of Emerson within the coming week. Now, Emerson, he turns 31 in August. He joined us from Chelsea in 2022 for a fee of about £12 million. And in that time, he's made 113 appearances for West Ham, scoring 5 goals, some of them quite spectacular, and with 6 assists. And I must admit, at the time of signing him, I wasn't that enamoured by the club bringing him to West Ham. I kind of viewed Emerson as a much better wing back than a left back, and I guess I wanted someone more solid, especially after King Arthur. But Emerson is the sort of player who grew on me at West Ham over the 3 years that he's been with us, and I appreciate what he actually brought to the club, to the team. He was one of the standouts, if not the standout player, in the final against Fiorentina when we won the Europa Conference League. And I will certainly thank him for 3 pretty decent, solid seasons that he's offered us. But he is going to move on. And the strong suggestion is that he will be returning to Roma, which was his first permanent club in Italy after a short loan spell at Palermo. So if he does go, and I think he will, I wish him all the very best. I think he's been a good signing for us. And what about his replacement? Well, Duth, he seemed, it seems, should I say, that we may have found ourselves a little bit of a gem here. Certainly a lively replacement for Emerson down that left side of midfield, or that left side of defence and midfield. Fast, energetic, loves to get forward. His crossing was a little bit rusty in the game against Grasshoppers, but you can see his intent. And there's one player that I think is certainly going to love him at West Ham next season, and that's going to be Nicolas. Once Diouf settles in and starts to deliver the kind of balls that we know he's capable of with that left peg, then all Füllkrug has to do is just get on the end of them. And I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how that partnership or that relationship on the pitch develops over time, because we could end up having one of our most effective sort of setups at West Ham. Diouf crossing the ball into Füllkrug would be very much how Nottingham Forest used Chris Wood last season to very good effect. Diouf looks comfortable on the ball, whether defending or attacking. And you could see that when he came on in the second half, instructions were to clearly get the ball to the player as often as possible. Now, it's a pity, really, isn't it, that Fulkrug only played in the first half, because it would have been very interesting to see Diouf and Fulkrug on the pitch at the same time. But I'm sure Potter will sort that out. We've got plenty of preseason friendlies to come. And I dare say at some point, we're going to see Diouf out on the left, Fulkrug in the middle. And I bet you he'll get a goal or two with Diouf crossing the ball in. Now, unfortunately for Fulkrug, he didn't really have much to feed off in the first half. And a bit like a Gerd Cornet, the big German was a little bit anonymous when he was on the pitch. But what about the rest of the team? Well, let's go through them bit by bit, shall we? Let's look at the first half, because the lineup in the first half had Areola in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Todibo, Kilman, Scarles in the back, Ward-Prowse, Irving and Rodriguez, Bowen, Cornet, supporting Fulkrug. You could say it was a 4-3-3, maybe a 4-2-3-1. It was quite loose. I've gone with what I thought it being more a 4-3-3. Now, of the starting lineup, I was keen to see how Irving, Rodriguez, and Cornet would get on. But of the three, for me, only Irving really sort of did well, to be quite honest with you. Look, Irving, not the most glamorous of players in the senior squad, but he seemed to be more, I don't know, more composed, unlike some of the others in midfield. I thought he had a really decent game. And if you recall, he had a really decent game, really decent preseason last summer, when he played for West Ham under Lopetegui. But Lopetegui, for one reason or another, didn't really fancy him. I think we've got to look at Irving as a serious contender for senior squad duties, and maybe next season, perhaps getting more game time than he did last season. And you've only got to look at his record in the past. When he played for Klagenfurt in Austria, in his time there, he scored 16 goals and 14 assists in 64 appearances. Now, that's almost one involvement in one goal every 2 games, whether he scored or assisted. That's not a bad record. All right, the Austrian league isn't one of the strongest leagues in the world, but nonetheless, you can only do, like, if we didn't know anything about Irving and we started to be given these stats about this player, you know, he plays in Austria, these are the goals he scored, assists, etc., many of us would be going, oh, that's not too bad. He might be worth a shot. So I like Irving. I'm wondering, of the 3 that I said in the first half, that all eyes were on a Gerd, Irving and Rodriguez. For me, I think Irving did himself no harm at all. As for Rodriguez, quite a few missed time challenges, which resulted in Rodriguez getting a yellow card. But I think at the moment, the reason why Rodriguez started or played is because Alvarez is not available. I know there's a lot of speculation that Alvarez may be leaving, and that may still happen. But for me, I'm not sure about Rodriguez. I wasn't sure about him last season. And look, it's only the first game in preseason. I don't want to judge too harshly any player, but I can only tell you what I've seen, what I thought. But for me, Rodriguez, I don't know. And then as for Cornet, well, in all fairness to him, not a lot went down the left side of attack. But where you saw Bowen getting involved on the right side, cutting in, etc., Cornet didn't do that. And I don't think he's really done his chances much good, to be quite honest with you. Now, to be honest with you, the one other player that was missing, only because he's still rehabilitating, coming back from his injury, is Somerville. No one expected him to play. It's been confirmed that he will be going out to America, but the understanding is he won't get any game time, which is a shame. But Somerville will be the player on that left side when he's fully fit. Cornet as a backup, I really don't know, to be honest with you. I think maybe our new signing that was announced on Sunday, WalkerPeters, is more likely to get game time on that side than Cornet would. Now, look, other players, we know Bowen's game. You know exactly what he's going to do. Once he gets the ball, he'll cut in around the 18-yard box. He'll cut in. He'll either try to take a shot himself, or he'll pass on to a player in a better position. And this time round, he passed it to Irving, who slotted the goal in really, really well. Potter's aim is all about possession. And in fairness, in the first half, we did that pretty well. With pace having been provided out wide rather than in the middle. But in fairness, the first half performance overall was okay. Pretty solid. Didn't really give the ball away too much. It was a slow but patient build-up play. And I know fans want to see something a lot faster, etc. I think with WalkerPeters coming in, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Somerville coming back, etc., we're going to get that pace, but it's all going to be out wide. What we want is pace in the middle as well. Well, what about the second half? Well, in the second half, he made wholesale changes. Every single player was changed. And we had in goal Foderingham, Casey, Mavropanos and Agurd in a change formation as well, in a back three, with Diouf and who played? And Guilherme playing out wide. And in the middle, it was Potts and Orford. And then up front, supporting Marshall was Paqueta and Souček. So all completely changed. Look, the one thing that this demonstrated is that Potter will not necessarily stick to one formation during games if he needs to. And I know, again, it's a friendly and, making sure that we weren't putting square pegs in round holes. I think maybe Guilherme was the only one that was just kind of the square peg in round holes. But it shows that Potter will change the formation round if he thinks it's necessary. How did they do? The back three? Not great. I think Casey will go out on loan next season. I don't think he's quite ready. I think Dinos was okay, but he gave the ball away. But then again, Agurd didn't necessarily look as if he was that involved in the game either. Is he committed? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. He was a little bit anonymous. Cornet was a little bit anonymous. I wasn't impressed with Rodriguez. And these are all the players, of course, that are being linked to move away from West Ham. I want to see a bit more of Agurd. I'm not going to make my mind up about him just yet. I want to see what happens as time progresses, because obviously what will happen, what Potter will do with all the pre-season friendlies is he's going to mix the teams around. It's going to be interesting to see what Agurd is like alongside Kilman and Todibo, for example, when they play in a back three. So I'm going to kind of hold out at this moment in time, not suggest that he should leave, but he's got a couple of games to really demonstrate what he wants to do at West Ham. Does he want to stay or not? Look, with his big chance, he demonstrated, that he's capable of Agurd, but not just quite there at this moment in time. And what about the two players that played out wide? Well, I felt sorry for Guilherme. It's not his usual role to play in a kind of a wing-backish type of role. He did okay. I thought he was half decent, but he looked a little bit like a fish out of water in a way. But Diouf on the other side, I think, was superb. I think he was fantastic. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Diouf is somewhere there. I'll talk about Diouf in a moment. But I thought Diouf was really, really good. So Guilherme, I don't expect Guilherme to play in that role much in the future. I think he's going to be the backup to Bowen, more advanced role. With WalkerPeters coming in, I think we're going to have options. Imagine Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Kyle Walker-Peters down that right-hand side. So I don't think we're going to expect to see Guilherme asked to be played in that kind of wing-back role too often. And what about the central midfield in Potts and Orford? Well, you just saw a glimpse of Orford there. I like him. He's a player of the future, but that's just it. He's a player of the future. He's not necessarily a player of here and now. I think he's going to be loaned out next season. I think he needs to toughen up. I'd like him to go to a championship team, a bit like what Freddie Potts did. And I'd like him to really demonstrate that he's absolutely capable of pulling all the strings in the championship in order to come back stronger. I think it's early days for Potts. I think a little bit like Agurd, I'm going to reserve judgment. I think there's a lot more to come from him. I think Potts will do better, and I'd look forward to seeing him more again with different players around him in that central midfield in the preseason. Souček and Paqueta, advanced. I think they were quite good. I think they did what we know that they can do. They've got nothing to prove. We know what they can offer. Paqueta looked like he was enjoying himself. A nice little flick on for Callum Marshall, who, of course, was the the young player who scored our second goal. And look, let's be really honest. Not only was it a well-taken goal, but once Paqueta flicked the ball onto him, not only did he score a really decent strike, but really decent positioning, but a lot of pace as well. He picked the ball up from just past the halfway line. He ran with it, confident, got his head down, knew what he was going to do, and he did it with aplomb. Now, Marshall made a brief appearance before for West Ham in an FA Cup, I think a couple of seasons ago, if I remember rightly. So let's see how he gets on in pre-season and whether he can continue. He had a very good season last season on loan to League One club Huddersfield. And I know everyone's going to say Premier League is very different to League One. And it absolutely is. I totally understand that. But still, getting 10 goals and 4 assists on loan is pretty decent, to say the least. But I want to see how he continues. If he continues to do as well as he did in this first preseason game, he's going to give Potter a big dilemma. What will Potter do? I think in his head, Potter's already decided who he thinks he's going to send out on loan. And I dare say Marshall would have been one of them. Like Orford, I want to see these players now potentially going out on loan, going to a championship team and seeing what they can do there, just like Potts did. But if Marshall continues, what then? Look, I think we're going to get a striker. I think there's going to be someone who's going to be competing with Fulkrug for the striker role. But as a third choice in the senior squad, why not? Look, the game ended with a typical Paqueta goal. The penalty he took, that run up, it does worry us all, doesn't it? And if he does get found innocent from all FA charges, I do keep saying that I think he's likely to leave. But wouldn't it be great if he stayed another season? Because it was noticeable he was walking around with a huge smile on his face, and he looked like he was enjoying himself in this preseason friendly as well. But as mentioned at the start of the show, with the review of the match aside, that a couple of other things that have happened is, firstly, as I've said, Emerson was not part of the match build-up. And then I decided well, hang on a minute. Has he been training? And we've seen him in the gym. He's been training on the gym. And I think he's been doing sort of maneuvers on grass. But I don't think I've seen him involved in any of the kicking the ball around on the grass with the rest of the squad. Look, if I'm wrong, please let me know. I'd be interested to know if you've seen him in any of the videos, etc., released, whether he was playing. And it looks like we'll be bidding Emerson farewell. So I think that's going to happen pretty quickly. And now with the arrival, the other thing that's happened with the arrival of Kyle Walker-Peters, he's undoubtedly going to offer us a lot more options down both flanks, down both wings. Look, I've already said he'll be able to provide cover for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He'll be able to provide cover for Diouf, as well as providing cover for Bowen and Somerville if needed to play further forward. And I think it's going to be quite interesting how Potter is going to use Kyle Walker-Peters in the upcoming season. Now, some fans have suggested that maybe Aaron Wan-Bissaka may be used as a right-sided wing centre-back in a back three with Kyle Walker-Peters playing as a wing back just ahead of him. I'm not sure that Wan-Bissaka will be played in the centre of a back three. It's possible, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Walker-Peters will obviously be joining the squad for the pre-season friendly. So that's now 2 players that we've got who are going to take part in most of the pre-season friendly games. It's a shame we didn't have him available for Grasshoppers. It's a shame we haven't got any more new players available either. But what has been demonstrated in this game against Grasshoppers is we still need another keeper, and we still need a striker, and as another option apart from Marshall, and we also still need something more dynamic in midfield. Now, in terms of transfers, it's been reported that we're a step closer to signing Mats Hermansen from Leicester. He apparently now has become our number 1 goalie target, and he's expected to move pretty soon. He was omitted from Leicester's pre-season friendly game on Saturday. And it's thought that this could be a player where we might get him in on loan with an obligation or an option to buy for around about 20 million. Now, the reason why I'm saying either or, obligation or option, is because of Leicester's situation. If Leicester get promoted back to the Premier League after next season, they may turn around and say, we want him back. If they don't succeed in being promoted back to the Premier League, then that's where the obligation might kick in. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. We're still waiting on the outcome of several midfielders that we're apparently chasing. And the stories about Douglas Luiz, Harvey Elliott, and Jack Grealish just don't seem to be going away. Oh, I want to don't seem to be going away. No, I won't mention him. Let me see. Did I load the right one? No, I didn't. No, I didn't load them, so you're not going to see any photos of them, unfortunately. But of the three, Harvey Elliott, for me, I think is the likeliest to be the player that we're going to get. And apparently, again, we're looking at a loan. We're allowed 2 loans, so I'm not quite sure about a loan for Hermansen because it scuppers my thinking, and I'll explain why in a minute. It scuppers our ability to loan other players in other positions. Of course, we can get loans from abroad, but in terms of domestic, we can only get 2 domestic players. Or is it only 2 from the Premier League? So maybe Hermansen coming from the Championship might be okay. I need to look into that. But anyway, I think we are going to try and get Elliott on loan with an option or obligation to buy again. And in a similar sort of way with Hermansen, it'll be an option to buy if Liverpool turn around and say he's done really well, we want him back. They take him back. It's an obligation to buy. If Liverpool go, no, he did all right, but you can keep him, then it'll be an obligation. And I think and it's interesting because I've been saying this now for about 2 or 3 weeks. And it's interesting that other social media columns are beginning to pick up on that. As for the striker situation, it's also been suggested that we may not spend a lot of money in that area, which could mean a number of different things. It could mean, and I know you're not going to like hearing this, but it could mean that Antonio, we might still be waiting to see for him to prove his fitness and see if he can come back with a different contract. We're certainly not going to offer him anyone. I know he complained about it on his podcast the other day, but we're certainly not going to offer him anywhere near the contract that he had at West Ham before the accident. So there's that option. Maybe that's what West Ham are waiting for. Maybe West Ham will look for a free signing. I don't think, we've been told that we're not going for anyone like Callum Wilson and Calvert-Lewin, etc. So I don't think that's a possibility. We may go out and buy ourselves a young striker from another league in order, because it'll be cheaper, etc. That may be an option. Or the other option for me is that West Ham might look at some of the strikers that are not currently in favour at their current clubs in the Premier League. And there's a number of them. Darwin Nunez of Liverpool, Nicolas Jackson of Chelsea, Rasmus Hojland of Man United, and Gabriel Jesus of Arsenal. They're all looking likely to be surplus to requirements at their respective clubs because all these clubs are going to look out for new strikers. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if we actually make any loan offers for any of those players. Loan with maybe an obligation to buy. That's why I was confused. I really need to look into whether if signing Mats Hermansen from Leicester, now that they're in the Championship, whether that scuppers our ability to start to sign 2 Premier League players. I can't remember. I know domestically you can only sign 2 domestic players, but I don't know if that means only from the same league or not. That's it. Thank you for watching and listening. I'm going to go out and enjoy the rest of what's left of the sun before the rain starts pouring down again. Have a good rest of Sunday, and I'll see you all very, very soon.